Welcome back to Arizona to Alberta. I'm Tracy Gray, your host, and this show is showing you the differences between buying and selling real estate in America, in Canada, and helping you through that are the stars of our show. We've got Devin Gray from eXp Realty with Mogul Realty Group, and then also down in the States in Phoenix, Arizona, we've got Diane Brennan with Coldwell Banker. Welcome, both of you guys. Back. It's been a little bit of a hiatus for all of us, but yeah, this is exciting. I'm glad we're able to get together, even though tech-wise, Devin and I are struggling a little bit still.
You guys think you look orange. You look good.
Oh, there you go.
Well, you said peachy, so I'll go with
You
that.
look peachy.
On camera, you said peachy. So yeah, we like peachy, especially in Alberta, because we'll take all the color we can get.
Well, I was going to say you guys look like you're more in Arizona than I do with that color, that shade.
Oh, there you go.
Well, we're faking it very well then.
Yeah.
Well, we're on the Celsius up here. We're -5. So I think that's maybe about 27 degrees, 26 degrees.
Let me Google it.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to ask me what the temperature was. So -5, you double it. 0, add 30. So 30.
So, okay.
30, oh.
Yeah.
So that would be chilly for Phoenix this time of year, I imagine.
But we're not far off.
That'd be chilly for Phoenix.
Like I'm wearing a sweater. So what's the temperature right? Oh, it's 67. What am I? 67. I'm wearing a sweater. But it's cold in my place. I was like, gosh, it's chilly. And then I realized I had all my blinds closed. Like in the summertime, you close all your blinds. And I'm like, why is it so cold? And I'm like going and opening up all my blinds to let some warmth in because it's a little chilly.
Yeah. That's the difference here. We try to keep the blinds open all year long, or at least I do.
Right.
I'm always freezing. I'm always cold. So every little bit of heat helps.
Well, if you hear this low hum throughout our entire recording, it's not your audio, it's our furnace going.
Is it?
Just kicked on as we were talking about how cold it is.
Yeah.
You couldn't hear it. You couldn't hear it.
Oh,
you know what? Because I know last time that if people have followed our YouTube show and when we've had the show before, because it's been a couple of years, we talked about my speeding tickets right in Canada, and I was glad that I moved to the US because, and every time I go back home, I'm worried about getting arrested because I had so many parking tickets back in the day. So guess what I just paid?
All your Canadian parking tickets?
No, not all of them.
Oh.
I'm sure they're forgiven now after 30 years.
You're still on the lam. I don't know. You're still on the lam.
But I was in Edmonton in November twice, and
Right.
I got a flippin' speeding ticket. So I was just paying. The rent-a-car place told me, you got a speeding ticket. I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? So,
so that would have been photo radar then because they didn't pull you over.
photo radar. Yeah.
Okay.
Which here in the US, I don't pay. And if anybody wants some tips, you come talk to me about that. But
wow.
That might have to be our next episode. That sounds pretty awesome.
I did pay the ticket, and so that, they'd rent a car to me and, I could come back and stuff. So
do you remember where? It's always, for us Edmontonians, it's always good to know and to share where
where to keep an eye on.
Where the
let me look it up here. I have it.
Because they just talked about how it was getting too out of hand, and so they actually
in Alberta,
and they were cutting down on the number of places that they did because it's become this massive cash cow.
Yeah, it's a joke. But I just didn't want the rental car company to not rent to me or me be on some kind of rent. But I knew I was doing 72 and 60.
Oh, that's not too bad, actually. Well, that was the other thing as well that they did was that they had narrowed it down so that basically even if you're going like 62 and a 60, they would still give you a photo radar ticket. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. But now the photo radar trucks have to be bright yellow so that you can see them from a long way out, and they can't be hidden behind bushes. So what they started doing was they were going over top of our overpasses on the major highways, and then they were grabbing you because then that way you couldn't see them till after you were already underneath the overpass, but they've just kiboshed that as well, making it so that they can't be sneaky like that too.
Oh, wow. I'll find it. I think it had to have been in the West End somewhere, but you guys want to know specifically?
Oh, that's okay. West End.
While I'm looking for it, you give us an update on Edmonton's real estate.
Probably on 170th Street. So, but yes, we are here to talk about real estate. And so, we'll talk specifically Edmonton, but also a little bit expanding out to Alberta. The Alberta market has been really strong. The economic juggernaut in Alberta, and there always is in every province or every state, there's some place where real estate gets started. And in Alberta, it would be Calgary, which is 3 hours south, or well, 2 hours if you're Diane, but 3 hours south of 3 hours south of Edmonton.
I was thinking the exact same thing. I held back though, Diane. I was
I know.
I'm not going to say it. I'm not. And then he went there.
It was westbound on Stony Plain Road between 180th and 182nd. For those,
okay,
that's where the photo radar is.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll have to see if that's still there. But so, anyways, Calgary got going in January of 2023, and that was fueled by so the interest rates are quite high in Canada. We also back in 2023 and most of 2024 had a very robust immigration program where we were seeing close to 1 million immigrants coming to Canada every year for several years, and that was really heavily fueling real estate price increases. On top of that, because of the high interest rates, we had a lot of people moving from higher priced real estate communities or areas such as British Columbia and Ontario, where the average price in Edmonton is maybe $500,000. The average price for a single family detached home in Vancouver is 1.4 million, and the average price in Toronto is about 1 million. So people were basically coming to Alberta because interest rates were high and real estate values were low. Calgary really took off and it was very, very busy through 2023. Everybody kind of kept looking and wondering, why are things going in Edmonton? Edmonton always follows Calgary. It's 10 to 18 months later. In the case of Edmonton, it finally did get going in about February of 2024. It was easily our strongest year in the past 6 or 8. It did taper off a little bit in the summertime, like it always does, and then also further slow down in the fall. But still the busiest we've had in about 5 or 6 years, for a couple of reasons. Again, continued in migration, and also low listings. But the other thing as well that happened in 2024 was interest rates have started to come down. And so that's put a lot of people that have been on the sidelines that are starting to come into the market. And one of the things that did change federally is that the federal government did pull back on the amount of immigrants that were allowed to come in. That probably took place in about October 2024. And so that really had an instant impact in regards to rental rates, vacancies, and real estate values, as everything just really started to slow down a little bit when they turned that tap off. But what the low interest rates have allowed is all of these people that have been sitting on the sidelines waiting for interest rates to come down, they've all started to enter into the marketplace. We're expecting the next 4 interest rate announcements between now and early June are all expected to be reductions in interest rates. So we're expecting more and more people to come into the marketplace, and we're very bullish on a very strong market in Alberta, and then especially in Edmonton. So all lights are green when it comes to the Alberta market.
That's great. Such a well thought out answer you have. Mine's like, our market has sucked for the last 2.5 years.
Well, nobody likes to expand on bad news.
Right? And you always have the weather going for you, Diane. So
at
least we get the green light on the real estate market right now for us.
Yeah, exactly. Things are getting much better here, but high interest rates have really halted things for the last 2.5 years in Arizona. So in terms of Canadians, there has been movement if Canadians already own property or Albertans already own property in Arizona. So they may sell a house and buy another one here without having that exchange rate, because the exchange rate is not the best. But it's even tough on people that come here, every year. Everything's a lot more expensive here. And then people who come down here to vacation or snowbird, the high cost of healthcare really puts a damper in things too. But things in terms of purchasing property here are looking a little bit better. We have sellers that are giving a lot of incentives to buyers. We're actually in a buyer's market right now. So sellers are giving incentives like giving them concessions so that they can help buy down their interest rate, things like that. And people are also getting used to the fact that higher interest rates are the new normal. So it always takes a lull of time for people to realize that that's happened and it's kind of our new normal. So
So a couple of questions. First off, what do you anticipate happening? They always talk about the first 100 days of a new administration. What do you think is going to happen, both federally in terms of real estate? Let's stay on real estate for now. When Trump comes into power on January 20th, what's the expectation of what's going to happen over the course of the first few months when it comes to real estate, both federally and then in Arizona?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that does also stall things. A lot of people don't move around an election and they're kind of concerned. They don't know what's going to go. With him becoming president, it also coincides with our busy season, which will start, January, end of January through to April. So that's our typical busy season. So we're expected to just have a busy season anyways. And then with that too, people are like, okay, this is what's going to be going on for the next 4 years, and people are more comfortable to make moves. And for the most part, all signs are pointing to a lot of activity.
I've got a client. I've been working with her since I became a real estate agent in 2019. She's got about 10 or 12 properties in Edmonton, but she's a real estate agent down in Costa Rica. And so every year she sells 2 or 3. And so I was just chatting with her yesterday, and I asked how things are in Costa Rica. And she said, well, since Trump won the election, things have been really busy. And I said, well, why? And she goes, well, all these Americans that don't want to be in the U.S.
Yeah.
presidency.
Oh,
is that a legit thing, or is that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was really divisive. I even know a person who went on medical leave because she was distressed about the new administration coming in. So nobody here knows who I voted for. With real estate clients, I don't say anything either way because it's so divisive here. Like I do not get into those conversations or anything like that. I will say half of my friends were jumping for joy, and then half of my friends were completely devastated. And when I say devastated, emotional, we're planning on moving out of the country. Absolutely. People are who are against this administration are definitely looking for. I mean, I think even the Canadian government took a ton of calls about how to immigrate to Canada from Americans.
They did, and certainly we've got our turmoil as well. Our prime minister has agreed to step down
as the
liberal leader, and then also basically to step down as prime minister, pretty much when a new liberal leader is announced, and then obviously that'll trigger an election. So, and I agree with that, and the fact that they say the United States has a new 4-year mandate with Trump. We've basically been operating under a minority government that in the past normally only lasts maybe 18 months before the opposition triggers another election. But the two parties, the Liberals and the NDP, got together and were able to keep it in power for over 2 years. But that's now crumbled. And obviously with Trudeau resigning, the push is, we need to have our own government with a clear 4-year mandate, depending on what sort of things happen. Because obviously the biggest thing that everybody is talking about right now is Trump's tariff threat about bringing 25% tariffs onto every single product that comes out of Canada at this point, including oil and gas. And last time he was president, he had a few tariffs on a few different products, but never touched oil and gas. That would be significant because so much oil and gas does come down from Canada to the United States. So we'll see if it's just he's a great negotiator, right? He's a business person. So
but maybe he doesn't understand tariffs so much, because that actually makes it more expensive for you guys when he increases the tariffs on it. The Americans have to pay for that. We'll get less sold here, so it does affect Canada, but it also hurts Americans. So it's a really not a very good threat for any of us.
Well, I do get teased that we're going to be Canada. We are Canada. Those that are new, I'm Canadian, American, and Italian. But that Canada's going to become the next U.S. state. So I do get a lot of, we're going to get you guys. Okay. So
they're coming to get us. Going to just scoop us right in.
Do they really want us?
Yeah.
Well,
So,
I think a lot of people have called us America's suburb anyways, right?
yeah, no doubt.
And then I'm like,
Well,
we're not. Then I
yeah,
have to
years
go get my.
ago, I was traveling in New Zealand, and this is years ago, and they called me American, and I'm like, I'm Canadian. They said, oh, you're North American. It's all the same.
Yeah.
So maybe
When I
they were
pull up my
talking
list,
to
these are the Canadian actors and singers that have contributed to the world here. I always have that list on.
Yeah. Well, if we can put in our vote, I don't want to be the 51st state. I'd like to leave that.
I do laugh at one of the hosts of the Daily Show commented about how she doesn't want to see Canada become the 51st state because she said, Canada is where I pretend I'm from when I'm traveling in Europe.
Now I guess Costa Rica is where she's gonna have to pretend.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
I wanted to quickly point out, so Tracy and I know somebody that they just moved on from it a few years ago, but they were talking about how she lived in this area that everybody got along and it was great. It was this condo complex and stuff like that.
In the US or in Canada?
In the US. I can't remember where it was, but somewhere in the US. And anyways, but just ever since the Trump thing came along, it was very divided. And so basically the one side of the pool was Republican, the other side of the pool was the Democrats. It's almost like they had to negotiate as to what side was allowed into the pool at
you
what
get
time.
East Wing, you've got West Wing.
It was
and nobody swam together in the pool.
I believe it. It was very divisive. So like, and I tell them when we grew up, like my parents didn't even tell me who they voted for. Like now it's a lot more vocal on what side in Canada, what side people are on.
Yes.
Because growing up, it was very personal. Nobody discussed.
Yeah.
Well, they always talked about you never discuss politics and religion.
Yeah. But is it changed in Canada? Do people openly talk about it? Do your neighbors know who you voted for?
I think everybody's different how much they talk about it. I think most people try and stay away from it until they find out you're on the same side as them, and then they'll talk openly about it. But I don't really know anybody that purposely will, like if they're, pro Trudeau, that they're gonna bark at someone.
The Canadians aren't
anti-Trudeau.
Canadians don't have a big flag saying pro Trudeau or against.
Yeah, but there's definitely that big division. It's really a matter of people love him or hate him. There really is a very limited amount in between, and like for Trudeau, but I don't know people that actually go toe to toe.
But advertising it,
except for on the talk shows.
The other thing as well that is very different is our political system, and the fact that if you're Republican, you're Republican, and you vote for whoever your Republican representative is. Here, you're voting for the party, right? Because if the largest amount of people that come, the largest amount of votes or seats in the government is who forms the government, and the person that becomes the prime minister who happens to be the leader of that. And so I do know people that might say, I don't like who, say, the Liberal leader is, but I really like my local MP. He's very, very good for the community and this, that, and the other. So I'm voting for him. And he just, especially if they're, say, conservative, they might say, well, unfortunately, I'm voting for him, even though he is a Liberal when I'm conservative. If they don't necessarily have that connection, then they might vote more for the party, but there is that part that can make it confusing. A lot of people will say, this is who I want for prime minister, so I'm going to go vote conservative or Liberal. But I do know a lot of people that will look at who their local representative is going to be in the federal government, and they will vote for that person regardless of the party. And unfortunately, that can sometimes hurt, because they might go, well, I like this guy, but I like that party. And so that can become a bit of a conflict as well. Like, it's interesting also in the fact that, the cabinet is created by all these other MPs that have been voted in by people, whereas unless I'm mistaken a little bit, but it seems that you vote for who you want as president, but then he gets to choose who he wants as Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, Secretary of Agriculture. So I think there is a vetting process through the Congress and that, but it's interesting that it starts with the president saying, I want this guy, I want this guy, I want this guy, because definitely doesn't work that way in Canada, which is interesting.
But a hard place for Liberals in Canada right now because they don't have a leader. As soon as Trudeau walks away, then they're trying to get a leader. So not people that would normally be proud Liberals and voicing their opinions about that are quite silent right now until they can get that sorted out.
And for Americans watching, MP is a member of Parliament. Just so.
Member of Parliament. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, it sounds like a rapper thing. It said, "Yo, MP in a house." I guess Parliament, it would be the house.
So are there Canadians that are completely upset that Trudeau's gone, or was it kind of the whole country was like, whew?
So possibly, and most likely down east. Again, we also have our own different set of voting challenges. You know, in the United States, we hear all about, you know, you should move to a popular vote structure as opposed to electoral college. There's pros and cons. Ours is basically that, you know, you only need a certain number of seats, and the federal government can be formed by winning a certain number of seats in Quebec and Ontario, which are down east, so that the votes in the west really don't even matter. So that's the biggest problem. You know, the province of Alberta is very conservative, and so I think you'd be hard pressed to find anybody that was a big Justin Trudeau, our prime minister, supporter. But he had a massive base in Quebec, especially where he's from, as well as Ontario. And so what has eroded over the course of the past couple of years is his support down east. Albertans have been talking about wanting to see Trudeau go for half a decade. He's been in power for just about 9 years, and but his base has eroded in the east, and so and he ultimately lost. Just for those that aren't aware, there was a conflict between him and his finance minister / deputy premier or deputy prime minister, and so he went to her and said, "Hey, I'm going to take you out of being finance minister and move you somewhere else," and instead she resigned. Which basically showed this huge lack of confidence to Trudeau from her, and that really just ultimately caused everything to fall apart. So for a whole month, basically, people have been calling for him to resign, and finally, just last week, he did. But the call out for him to resign has been for well over a month.
Yeah, well, I tell people because they're like, you know, how do you guys feel about Trudeau? And I said, well, I'm from the West. It's completely different. We're like the Texas. We have the oil. We're like the Texas of Canada.
That's right.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. But Trudeau's mandate when he first stepped in was to try and knock down oil as much as he could so that we could go to alternatives like electrical vehicles and stuff like that. So right away when he stepped into government, he was basically like not being at full support for Alberta anyway. So that's where a lot of that is tied in.
100%.
By the way, have you guys been watching Landman on Netflix?
No, you always have the best shows.
Yeah, I haven't. I've seen it. Yeah, with Billy Bob Thornton.
So they address a lot of the oil issues and the misconceptions about oil. So everyone's got to watch it. It's really, really good.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah. So Landman on Netflix.
Oh, is it? Oh, no, on Paramount.
Paramount. Okay.
So yeah, and we have only like 4 minutes left here, but next time we're definitely going to talk about religion. Just kidding.
Yeah, well, because we should probably wrap up the political part of this now, but it all does affect real estate.
For sure. No, I'm just joking because we had a little pre-meeting. We're like, we're going to stay away from religion and politics. And I'm like,
whatever we do. Don't talk religion, don't talk politics. So
don't talk vaccinations.
Right, exactly.
None of that.
Yeah.
Well, talk about dividing people and getting arguments going. But maybe that'll be the next episode.
Yeah, but you're right. It does absolutely. The politics involve our markets and finances and everything else. So we have to give people the big picture.
Yeah. So Diane, just quickly here, as we wrap up, what would you say the biggest factor is in politics right now that's affecting real estate in Phoenix?
Yeah. So next week we'll talk about religion and.
Okay, well, we can do that for our next episode.
You know what? People are just still kind of, it's too soon to see, right? We have a little bit, it's picking up. So what's affecting it? I think people who have confidence in the market, they believe the Republican Party is, strong financially and is good for business. So I think there's a big push and for buyers that are confident in the market and who are not upset. they feel confident in buying. They feel nothing but positivity. So I can say that. Did I say that politically correct?
Yes, that was awesome. And so, Devin, I'm going to say the same thing to you in Alberta, Canada. Just a summary of how politics is affecting real estate right now.
Actually, to be honest, not too much. We've got a very strong conservative mandate. Our premier, Danielle Smith, is very pro-business. Affordability, opportunity for jobs is what's driving so many people here. And this situation with an election coming and Trudeau out has got all Albertans feeling really, really good about the future. It's, as I said before, it's all green lights right now. It's a great time to be in Alberta, and I think that if anything, the upcoming 6 to 8 months with what happens with politics on a federal level are going to be all great things for Alberta.
And I'd like to find out more about the what is it, a moratorium on immigration? So, and if that would affect Americans, because the dollar is so, US dollar can buy so much more in Canada, if that affects Americans from purchasing. And is it a good idea for Americans to purchase in Alberta? So
sure.
Yeah.
There's your homework.
Fantastic. There we go. There's the homework.
Let's get
and our topic for our next show. But we are going to have to wrap this one up. And so I'd like to thank both of you guys for being on the show today. I'm Tracy Gray. Our superstars here in Edmonton, Alberta is Devin Gray. Do you want to let them know how they can reach you?
You can reach out to me via email at Devin, DEVIN, at mogulrg, MOGULRG.com.
And our Canadian American superstar real estate agent, Diane Brennan, and Italian. Got the trifecta in there.
Yeah.
We've got Diane Brennan down in the States with Coldwell Banker. Diane, how can they reach you?
Sure. My email is can'trememberheremail@gmail.com.
I forgot it already. All right. Awesome show. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next episode.